Hey everybody, this is Dream, and this is going to be a breakdown of the Xfinity race here for NASCAR. This race does uh, start this afternoon, so it should be a pretty interesting race. We have a couple core plays for you, and then some good options to pick from throughout the slate. So before I get started, though, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really helps the channel out. I really do appreciate it. With that said, let's get into the slate. So our top overall play is going to be Chandler Smith. Now he has got a great car. He's been fantastic to start the season. As we can see, he's been in the top 10 in every race and in the top 5 in all but one. He's starting 37th, rough qualifying day. So I look for him to have a lot of upside in this race. This is Martinsville, so in these short tracks, there's a lot of maneuvering and going up and down in the line in the where you start to finish and stuff. So I think that that's going to be huge for this slate. He's got the most upside of anybody on the slate when it comes to this pure fantasy points because you get a lot of bonuses for moving up, and so that does give you a lot here. He becomes a core play as a default. He's not the best driver at this track, but even if he gets 15th, he's gonna be paying off here. So I think he's a really solid option here. Then we have the next three drivers are Algier, Cole Custer, and Creed. These guys are all very similar in price, and they all have a good upside here. Sorry, I'm at Amarola, Algier, Custer, and Creed. These four guys are all over $10,000. They all start in the top 10, and they all have some viability. I think Creed is probably the weakest option on this slate, so I do like Custer, Algier, and Almirola, but it's going to be hard to use any more than one of these guys based on their prices. And if I had to choose one, I would go with Cole Custer first. I would go with Algier second and Almirola third. But overall, all three guys have a lot of potential in this one, and Almirola does have the good enough car to win, so I do think he's also a viable choice. I can't see too much to hate about any of them other than the fact that they start near the front, and that does hurt their total upside here. Creed is pretty much a passable play today, even though he is starting third. He's been just weaker at this track compared to the other guys above him in this price range. Then if we get into the sub at 10,000 guys and look at these 9,000 to 10,000 range guys, we have one guy that I like a lot is Sammy Smith, and one of the bonuses here is he's starting 17th, so he's got some maneuvering to move up. He's also been really solid here with three top 20s in the last three races here, and he had two top 5s in that stretch as well, and he's led a lot of laps. That gives him a lot of potential fantasy wise, and if he can get to the front, then he's definitely somebody that can stick up there. The other guys at this position, I think Mayer and Love are a little bit too expensive for their starting positions. And then if we get down a little bit farther with Austin Hill, he is an interesting play because he's fared well here in the past, but he is starting up a little too high for me to feel comfortable, though he's been really solid with his top 10 in every race so far this season. And then if we look at Riley Herbst, he starts far enough back that I think he's viable. He's had four top 10s in the last six races here, and he's starting 22nd. He's going to have some upside in this matchup, in this race, and so he definitely has good potential for this one. He also has led a couple laps in the past as well. I don't necessarily think he'll do that today, but he's got some maneuverability here. Looking at the sub 9,000 guys, we'll start with the 8 to 9,000 here, and Almendinger looks like a really solid play today. He's somebody that I'm trying to figure out how to get him in the lineup because he's priced pretty fairly, and he's got some good upside in this race. He's had two top 10s the last four, and he's been in the top 20 in each of those races. He's got one of the better ratings at this track for this slate, so I think he's a viable option here. I'm not really big on Carson here at starting 12th. Brandon Jones, I really did like him before the qualifying, and of course he ended up starting first. He's going to be tough to roster because it's going to be hard for him to stay up front. However, in the last six races, he has 142 laps led here, and in those races, he's had four top 10s and three top 5s and a win. So he's definitely capable. He's underpriced, but now that he's starting first, definitely inhibits his maximum upside unless he actually wins the race, which he is very capable of doing. So he's definitely a good play, but he definitely carries some risk here. Taylor Gray also very interesting here. He does have some good potential in this race, but he's a high risk, high reward type of situation as he is starting 16th, so he has some maneuverability. Not a great play, but a decent play. Parker Kligerman is somebody that I find interesting here. His history here is not too bad in the two races. He's had two top 20s and one top 10. He's also been pretty solid to start the season, so he's got a really good car. I do like his upside in this race, and he has some good potential as he's not starting too far back. But he's kind of in the mid pack, and that gives him enough room to make some maneuvers up to get to be a viable choice on this slate. Um, as for the next guys like Van Gisbergen, um, Parker Retzliff, and Josh Williams. The only guy of those three that I really like here is Josh Williams. Now he's kind of risky, but in the last 5 races at this track, he's had 4 top 20s, and he's starting 23rd, so he's starting far enough back that he has some maneuverability. Not a great play, and he's not particularly fantastic as a track or anything, but I do think he can get in this 15 to 20 range and the finish, so that gives him some potential at this track. Uh, Parker Retzliff is interesting, but he's starting a little bit too high for me to be feel comfortable with him. And then Van Gisbergen, he might have some potential today, but he's been inconsistent so far this season. So at these short tracks, they're a little bit tougher, and they're not like the tracks he's used to. So I think he's gonna maybe struggle a little bit more here, but he definitely has some potential as well. Looking at the sub 7100 guys, Matty D is always somebody that's interesting to play. His starting position is okay at 14. I think it's probably a little bit too high to make him a viable choice. Same goes for Sieg, Burton, and Alfredo. I really did like these guys before looking at this race, so these guys do have potential in this track, but they definitely start too high up really to be super viable here. I might make a lineup where I actually use all three of them just to see what happens, but I think that they're somewhat risky because of their starting positions. Looking at Jeremy Clements, though, he is somebody I really do like here. He's got a pretty good rating at this track. In fact, in the last 6 races, he's had 5 top 20s and he's had 2 top 10s. He did have one DNF, but if we ignore that, he's got some good potential at this track. He seems like he's pretty good at finding his way into the top 20, and he's starting outside the top 20, so that gives him some potential here. I wish he was starting a little bit farther back, but I do like him at that position anyway. Then we're going to look at uh, how that's the next group of drivers here at the 6200 and under with Weatherman, Deegan, Sieg, and Poole. I really don't like any of these drivers today. They just don't have much to offer at this track. Deegan has not found their way yet in this Xfinity series. Has really struggled so far. Until she does find a way, then I'm going to be avoiding her for the most part. Weatherman and Sieg both just don't have much good history here. Neither does Poole. Then if we get to Matt Snyder, or Myatt Snyder, excuse me, he has some good potential here, and he's starting near the back, which really gives him a lot of upside. In the 5 races here, he's had 4 top 20s, and that gives him some potential in this track. He's nice and cheap as well. And then if we get below him, there's not too much to like here. Outside of maybe Bearden, though he is a kind of a Hail Mary approach here. But his car is pretty good, so he's definitely going to have some potential, and he is dirt cheap, obviously, too. So that is somewhat interesting. Outside of that, not much else to like down here. If you wanted to try some of these guys at the back of the pack, just as Hail Mary plays like a Goda or a Gase or something, I mean, you could do that, but I don't see too much reason to do it today. But overall, I do think this is going to be a fun race, so hopefully it's a good one. If you guys have any comments or questions, let me know in the comments below. Make sure to tell me who you think is going to win this race prior to it. So